Wow, brilliant. Okay, can everybody hear me at the back? Yes! You are live on YouTube. No farting or swearing, please. It's a new experience for Velo Cafe. Welcome everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, thanks for coming. My name's Rory, I work for Upgrade Bikes. My connection with this evening is that we are the UK importer and distributor of Pivot Cycles, and thereby that links us to my good friend Mike Paul. And Mike and Ed were both riding Pivot Cycles tonight, so that's why we're here from my point of view, but why you're here is to find out more about this incredible journey that took place just a month ago. The response has been fantastic. We put this out only recently. Big thanks to all the UK media and press. Tim Johns from RC UK is here tonight. We've got Joe Burt from Road CC here tonight, two of the guys that really pushed this out for us, so thanks to them for letting us know. We've got Gareth from Over the Bar, which is a new portal for cycling in this area. So however you found out about this, great, well done. You're here for hopefully a very entertaining and interesting evening. Thanks very much to Velo Cafe. This is the place. This is where rides start. This is where coffee happens. And our good friend Matt Carr at the end there is all things cycling. If you've not met Matt, he's the one that says, I am Matt. Meet him later. And he is our host tonight. So thank you to Velo Cafe. We are being broadcast live on YouTube. So some people around the world have asked to tune in. So hello there, America and Istanbul and everybody watching. I don't know, Gareth, whether you want to show them the audience quickly. You might be able to all wave at the rest of the world. For anybody who's tuning in. There we go. So mobile phones switch to low or off, and toilets at the back. Quick running order. We'll see how it goes. Mike and Ed are going to talk about their experience, particularly in the Trans Am. And then Mike's going to talk a bit about the Transcontinental. We'll see how that goes, but certainly no more than about an hour. And then save up your questions for after that. And we should all be wrapped up with Q&As by 9. We're here till at least 10 o'clock, so enjoy the cafe and the refreshments at that point. So before I introduce them, I've got a little bit of background about Mike and Ed that I can tell you, because tonight's really about the experience on the Trans Am race, rather than their own personal history, because that's something you can find out about chatting later. Mike Hall, I have to say, I met this guy not many years ago. He was very unassuming. He's still very unassuming, and I think that's one of the things that intrigues me about him. I met him at a mountain bike race. It was a race that we created when I used to work for Exposure Lights. We created a 24-hour mountain bike solo event. This guy turns up. He didn't have a clue. His pit crew was a famous journalist, a guy called Guy Kesterman. He was late. Mike was on his own, and he came to me for some help with lights. And he really didn't understand how the battery systems would work. And I thought, yeah, you're just like me. It was my first 24-hour solo race, so we were all experiencing something new. Some people had some experience. It was a proper race. We all got through it. What intrigued me about this guy, Mike Paul, was I said, oh, is it your first bike race, first 24-hour race? Yeah, it's my first one. I said, oh, it's going to be great, isn't it? You know, we're doing it. Cool, it's going to be immense. He said, yeah, well, I'm going to do a few more. And most people, when they do a 24-hour solo, and I know there's some people in the room who've done these events, that's it, one and you're done. You know, that's one a year, and you're busted. He said, yeah, I'm going to do some more. You're going to do some more? He said, yeah, I'm going to do all of them. There's about 5 or 6 in the country. I'm going to do all of them. Well, I kind of figure, if I do all of them, I might learn something. I thought, yeah, you're nuts, but I don't believe you. Anyway, let me tell you about these batteries and how these lights work. So that was the start of our relationship as far as I remember. In 2009, Mike rode the Sleepless in the Saddle. He was supported, and he had a good result, it says here. In 2010, he decided to actually train and try and ride his bike, and he had some better results, but nothing really special. Then in 2011, things really came together for Mike. So this is only recently, and he won an immense 24-hour mountain bike race called Strath Puffer. if you've heard of that. It's 24 hours in Scotland in January. It's dark for 18 hours. And you don't want to go there. I was doing the support, and at one point Mike comes through and his brake pads are run out, and he says to me, he said, I don't suppose you could run up the hill and help my mum because she doesn't know even how to change an inner tube, let alone brake pads. I'm like, yeah, I'll help out. So he got through and he won it, and it was a pretty big race. And that year he also decided to do the Tour Divide, something people would normally live in fear of once a year. But he did that as well. He learnt a lot, didn't go so well, but he learnt a lot. And he came back, he did another 24-hour race, and he won that. That was in 2011. So he's all teed up now, this guy, Michael. He's like, oh, this is quite good, doing it right here. So in 2012, he did this thing called the World Cycle Race. It was the first of a kind, and it's happening again. It's just happening again every 2 years. And you probably know the story. I'm not going to go on about it. He smashed it. And he wrote down to me, he said, yeah, it was good training. Went a bit mental afterwards. It was a big race, and it took a lot out of Mike, I think, and he learnt a lot. And afterwards, he disappeared for a bit and had to sort of, had to deal with a few things. And that's something that some people might recognise. When you do something extreme, you have to come back from that extreme. What next? There's a big hole in your life. So that's kind of an interesting part. You might have some questions for Mike and for Ed later about how do you deal with the gap after something like this. So that brings us to 2013, when he decided to get back on the mountain bike after spending a lot of time on the road bike. And there's a picture in the corner there of him in the Pain Cave during a long day in the saddle, where he averaged 200 miles a day on the mountain bike, I think that's about right. And took a win in the America Tour Divide, where they raced 4,500 miles. 2,000 kilometers. Yeah, 2,700 miles down the spine of America. It's a big one. And that really solidified Mike's relationship with Pivot, because at that point I thought I'd better let him know who this guy is. And I helped him out with the bike. In fact, the orange bike that's just out there. That's the Tour Divide bike. And he kind of had a good time there and really enjoyed the race. And that set him up really for what he's now started, helping other people enjoy these events in the Transcontinental. But it also made him think about skinny ties again, and taking part in the new race of the Trans America, which I'm right in thinking was organised or thought about by the guy that does the Trans Rockies.
No, it's Jack and Poland.
Okay. There was some sort of connection. Anyway, Mike found out about this race, Trans-America, so I'll have a go at that one as well. So he's quite good at this distance cycling. And that brings us up to date, which is what Mike's going to tell you about. So, in my eyes, this guy's come from sort of nowhere. And if you look at his blog, his normally aspirated human is his blog title. It's just a normal guy. But he's done quite well, and I think we all have a lot to learn from how we can apply those. Then when we meet another guy called Ed, who I basically noticed during the race, because Ed, who's on my right here, of course I'm a marketing guy, so I kind of tune into the fact that he's on another Pivot bike. It's like, brilliant, there's 12 of those in the country, where did he get it from? So I had this mystery to solve, and I've only found out a bit about Ed very recently, and it's all been through Facebook Messenger, because his phone doesn't work properly. Broke on the race, and we met each other today. We've been for a ride. But a little bit about Ed. 2010. First of all, the thing that impresses me about him is 10 years Mike's junior, and Mike's more than 10 years my junior. So damn you all. But it impresses me that Ed's finding some incredible legs and some incredible mental ability at such an early age, and I think that's something that might come out tonight. 2010, rode the Trans Am Trail, which is the sort of route, solo and unsupported, at the age of 19, and was recognised by the Adventure Cycling Association for being the youngest person to complete that designated route. It wasn't a race, it was just a route, go do it if you want to. Obviously has a sense of adventure and took himself to the States to do that. It says here, in 2011 he rode more than 4,000 miles solo, unsupported, from Nordkapp in northern Norway down to the south of Spain. Likes his long journeys, getting the miles in. And then last year he rode a few different rides at Montpellier, from Salisbury where he lives, in 9 days, you know, like you do. Vancouver to Minneapolis, a couple thousand miles, knocked that one off. Training ride for something, don't know what yet. And he also then competed in the inaugural Transcontinental race, which Mike organised last year. I wasn't really focused on everybody in that personally, but he was the youngest rider there, and he placed 4th. So, what's next? Clearly he's got to do something a bit bigger and a bit harder, so he goes to his beloved America and has a go at the Transcontinental. And for those of us that were following the tracker, he was right on it and finished an incredible 3rd place, and was never off the pace. And we are looking forward to hearing his story. During that time, I would like to mention that he was supported by Cora's bikes. We made a fantastic titanium bike for him. And the fact that he's actually on pivot during the race was coincidental, but I'll let Ed tell that story. But we always recognise sponsors, and he couldn't have got to that start line without their help. And also he had some great help from some other people. I'll let him tell you about that, the bag kit people, etc. There's a bit of a disaster story coming. So that's the introduction. You can see the background is pretty impressive. I think we all have dreams about our own cycling. Put those aside for the moment. We'll start with Mike. Could you please welcome Mike and Ed for an evening of talk.
Thanks for coming. We've got some photos. Ed flew into the country this morning at, sometime this morning.
Still a bit jet lagged.
Didn't have an awful lot of time to prepare or cue ourselves for a polished presentation. So we've got images courtesy of Inspired to Ride, which is Mike Leon and Peter Speaker's new film project. So they were the guys who did Ride the Divide. Everybody's seen that, the movie about the Tour Divide in 2008. And their next film project is going to be all about this year's Transat. So they filmed us all the way through. That's, I'm told, going to be out next March. So they took some great photos. We were racing, we didn't really have time for the photos, and because they were taking such good ones, certainly for me, I didn't bother even trying. So the images you see tonight are courtesy of them and Apogura, who was supporting them. So thanks to those. I also thank my mum as well, seeing as Rory mentioned that she was supporting me as a Stratford, because that evening, that night before that race, we were meant to stay in a hotel in Strathpeffer, and so I helped her. I asked her to help support me in this race, and she had no idea that she could come along and be enthusiastic. And I said, I've got you this hotel booked, fine. 2 days beforehand, the hotel shut and cancelled our booking because they just didn't have enough people, because no one goes with them. And so she slept across the front seats of my van on the first climb out of Stratford, and it was freezing. I opened the van doors in the morning. I slept on some boxes in the back of the van, and somebody slid past us on the ice, upside down on the back, and then his bike slid past afterwards. It was just sheet ice. So she's been supporting me, gone completely over and above. And Rory too picked up the gauntlet on that one. He's supported me throughout pretty much all I've done on a bike since first meeting him when he was at Exposure Live. I just turned up with a cooler full of pizza and piggybacked Rob Dean's support at Sleepers in the South. That's kind of where my story started, as Rory said. Rory's just been just always eager to help in any way he can, and just showing up in the middle of the night, giving me a bowl of chips to eat while he washes my glasses and cleans my lights and my bike. It's just, and at other races where I just go in and plonk myself and he's gone and back off and found me food and things like that. He's always just, and at the end of the World Cycle Race, to show up in London at the observatory with a cake baked for me as well. It's a personal relationship, and so I just want to say big thanks to Rory. How we'll do this is we've got the lead up to the race. We've got the first stage, quite significant, and there's like the first half of the race, the first week across the Rockies, and then the second half of the race, and then sort of coming into the finish. So we'll both talk about those, and we'll sort of flip-flop between. So I'll talk about my the lead up to the race, and then we'll say. The images you'll see will start to make more sense when you hear us talk. So if we're boring you, some of them will be obscure and some of them start to make more sense. So as Rory mentioned, coming in, the first time I heard about Trans Am was we just got back from the Transcontinental, which is a race that I organised or partnered, helped organise with a company called the Adventurists, which put on things like the Mongol Rally, which is where you drive out cars in Mongolia, the Mongol Derby, where you a big world's longest horse race across Mongolia. And they'd seen the World Cycle Race, they got a little bit sort of involved and supported that while it was happening. And then when I got back, they asked, we sort of got together and they wanted to put it on again and organise it and things. So we came up with some other people who were interested in doing an event with a kind of taster for that, and I'd always had in the back of my mind this idea to go across Europe, like a European style round. But then there were also a lot of people in America who wanted to do round supporting, because it costs 20 grand to get a support vehicle and doctors and all the jazz that goes with it. So the time was kind of right to do an unsupported race, and we really thought to ourselves that the adventure that it would not have a route. So we did that, and it was pretty successful. And some of there's two guys based in here that did it. And after that, I heard about Nathan doing the Trans Am, and it was another cross the continent bike race that was the same as ours. And we'd done the Transcontinental. We thought it would be really cool to do it in America as well. But then Nathan's already sort of started doing it. I think he told a few people on bikepacking.net, which is one of the big forums called Tour Divide, and he more or less said, well, I'm going to go and race it, and if anyone wants to come along, then that's fine. We gave him a call, we talked over Skype and things, and I said, well, we thought about doing that as well. Why don't we just, both try and push it and get it out there and sort of come up with it's like a sister race or something like that. I think he sort of doubled his amount of audience and people who had interest in it in the next couple of weeks, and then he was just off. He was on a flyer. He was really enthusiastic about it. Not just we started promoting it. It caught the attention of the guys who made the film. More people started to join. The ride of roster was going up to about 100. So probably about 20 of the guys who'd done the Transcontinental on there as well. So it was really sort of there was a scene happening around it. So it was really, really good. At that time, I wasn't really thinking of riding it. I was maybe going to go back and do the Tour Divide again, because Hefe Branham, who was second the year I first did it, was going again, and I thought that would be a really cool race to have with him, because a lot of these races they're made better with somebody to race. So I thought we could really push ourselves on that. And anyway, halfway through the year, I was still thinking, I can't quite get into training really hard for the Tour Divide. It's one of those you always want to go back to, but I think we've got to let it fester for a little while. So I was not quite getting into training, and then my attention turned to Trans Am. I saw all these people signing up for it, and then there's quite a bit of excitement. And I thought a road race of that length, which would be about just a bit over 2 weeks maybe, very much the same style as the Tour Divide, but different, on the road, could have it could be really painful really, and I thought that's really exciting. So I thought that to do what we did in the World Cycle Race, but with more intensity and with more kind of staying awake and sneaking around at night in bushes and things, would be really, I just got really excited about it. So I started thinking about doing that, and I ended up going with the Trans Am in the end. I think I did make a decision about sort of March, and then I just started training, and I thought, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And then I got this stupid leg injury, weird, I don't know what you call it, so Rory's wife she knows all about my woes over the past, she's a physio, and I called her, I was like, I've got this trapped nerve and I can't pedal properly and I just feel a bit unbalanced and things. And so I wasn't riding quite enough right up into the lead into the event. I did a couple of Audax events, Brevet Cymru, which went well, and then the Brian Chapman Memorial, 600 kilometres across Wales and back. And they were meant to be my two big ones, and then going to like a hard week of training. I just really hadn't done that, and so I was quite nervous going into this race. The Brian Chapman Memorial is on the 17th of May-ish, and the 3rd of May was the Brevet Cymru, so that was a 400 kilometre and 600, and they were going to be my last big effort. Something I found in training for these style of events is that things like the World Cycle Race and the Tour Divide stay with me. So I don't train massive distances for a long time. I only do 6 months, 200 miles per week or anything like that. I think a 200-mile ride, a couple of those at hard pace, probably about a month or 2 and 4 weeks out from an event, is probably about perfect. And the rest of the time I've been spending time on a fixed wheel. So every year I'm doing a power meter and a heart rate monitor, and I do things scientifically and make me look much better rider, and then I get back on my fixed gear bike, which is just a training bike with a short crank, a big gear on it, and go and ride up the hills in Wales with increasing steepness. And the problems I had on the Tour Divide before were hamstrings and sort of soft tissue injuries. It wasn't fatigue. So most of the training is on creating good, strong muscle mass and connective tissue, so that for me that's my idea of what it is. And then a really good pedalling stroke, which is forced by going down the steep hills on fixed wheels that you keep up with it. So it's like good pedal stroke, really efficient pedal stroke, and strong legs. And then during the event, your power sort of drops off as you go, and you kind of burn the muscles away. So that was training, but that didn't really happen that well. I was nervous going into the event, so I still had this sort of strange thing I couldn't really account for or do anything about, which was stopping me pedalling too much. But on the Brian Chapman Memorial, I almost canned it at 10 hours, so we got out to, it was about 20 hours maybe. We got out to the Menai Strait, so from Chepstow up to the Menai Strait. That was where I was like really wanting to just get a hotel and train back, and it was just the furthest point. But I had 2 hours sleep with Bob Effley and got back on the bike, and then I rode into the next day, and everything was still, it seemed to be okay. So I decided that I was going to fly into Vancouver and ride down to the start, which was so flew in on the 3rd of June. The race started on the 4th. So I had 2 days to ride down there. Didn't know how long it was until I started finding my route. It was a 140-mile day with jet lag. It was a bit weird. It was kind of nice, and I got ferry crossed from Fort ACO to Port Townsend, stayed there, and the next day was 190 miles down to Astoria, where the race started in Oregon on the west coast. It wasn't ideal because I had probably about 36 hours rest, and so I could have done with another day. So we started the first day a bit tired, but that was how I got to the start of the race.
Nice. Well, in a similar kind of fashion to Mike, I started hearing about the Trans Am right after I took part in the Transcontinental in 2013, and yeah, it sort of captivated my imagination pretty quickly. And by October, I committed to saying that was what I wanted to do, and that was going to be my goal for this year. So started training right after that race. I spent a bit of time in North Carolina, and that was great in the lead up to the winter. It's bright sunshine and not raining. So not doing silly long rides, just similar thing to Mike. I wasn't training on fixed gear, but I was trying to do quite a lot of strength work, so putting the bike into a really big gear and pushing up the hills, and that seems to help a lot. I find mixing that up with some sort of intensity stuff. I don't really tend to use a heart rate monitor, but you know when you're pushing hard and trying to do as much of that as I could. And that went really well. The lead up to Christmas was great. I felt brilliant, and I went out to Tenerife over Christmas to try and get some proper mountain climbing in, and that's when things started to unravel a little bit, and I got knocked off my bike at doing about 50 miles an hour. I did a driver turn across my lane of traffic, went straight off the side of him, and I was saved by some bollards, and the bike was written off pretty much, but I was alright because I hit bollard, and I spent one afternoon in hospital, and was only off the bike for about a week, so it could have been much worse, but that was my first setback. Then after Christmas, that was really when I started building the distances a little bit more. So did some Audaxes, did some sort of 200-mile rides on my own time. On weekends, I rode up to my grandparents in Yorkshire, which was a good 235 miles. My last big training ride, the year before for the Transcontinental, I'd done a ride, as Rory said, from Vancouver in Canada to Minneapolis, where my girlfriend lives. Hello, Elizabeth. And yeah, that was really good training for that ride. So I thought that worked before. Let's do it again. So I said for this race, right, this was at the start of May. I'm going to ride from London to Rome. I thought, sounds good. A bit of timing helps. And I got as far as Lyon, feeling good on the bike, doing about 200 miles a day. Wasn't pushing it as hard as possibly could have done, but it was good training. And spent the night. It was pretty atrocious weather coming through France, so I decided to spend the night in a hotel in Lyon, which was probably my biggest mistake, and put my bike in a secure lockup overnight. And unfortunately, when I came down the following morning, it was gone. So that was a custom titanium bike that Corals, who was sponsoring me for the race, had put together. Brilliant bike, and gone, vanished into thin air. So I had to fly back from Lyon, and had about a month from then to get ready for the race. So this was really kind of a big decision at that point. To, am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? Can I pull this off? And it really was incredible to see friends, guys in the cycling community come together and help me out with different things. So USC helped me out with a load of the seat post parts, which was brilliant of them, and Apogera with the bags, which has been brilliant. So I really was lucky to make it to the start line. I only managed to put the bike together for about 2 weeks before the race, so it really was kind of lastminute.com. And like Mike, I planned to do the Brian Chapman as a final kind of thing, and that was really important for me at that point because I hadn't managed to finish my ride to Rome, and I thought, well, at least I can get one thing done, but I didn't get a bottom bracket in time, so I had to miss that as well. But I managed to do about 800 odd miles in the 2 weeks before the race. Most of that kind of compartmentalised into big rides, and that seemed to be really good preparation. And flew out a week before the race, had some training rides on the Oregon coast, lovely, and yeah, felt good to go to the race, but just more than anything, phenomenally glad to make it to the start line.
So I'd stay with a very kind man called Billy Rice, who let me sleep in his hotel room, shared his hotel room with me. So thanks to Billy and a couple of guys, Rich Costello and Brian Steele, who we hung out with in Astoria. And then on the 7th, we all went down to the start. It was 5 a.m. at the Maritime Museum in Astoria. Pretty sort of low-key start really, but everyone was there, ready to go. And then Nathan said go, and we all left. And I knew that my legs were going to be a little bit shaky, a couple of 100 miles in them, and I knew like the people that I were watching were Billy Rice, because he's called the yo-yo man, so he did on the Tour Divide, you either go north to south, which is the traditional way of doing it, and that's called the SOBO, southbound. And some people started going Novo, which is northbound, and then he did the yo-yo, which was there and back, something like, I don't know, 5,500 miles, so, and a good ride for the Tour Divide is meant to be about sort of 21 days-ish. I think he did it in around about 44 days total. So I knew he had the because you get a rider roster, you're checking out their competition, seeing what Ed's doing, he's riding to Rome, and yeah, and I knew Billy could do the miles, and I was just checking up on people. So I knew Ed I knew Ed had done the route before as well. So this is the first time the race had been run. No one had any previous conceptions about what was a good time to get to where, you know, how the race was going to unfold or anything like that. So Ed was probably the most experienced of us in the actual route. And I've been reading his blog. He's got an excellent blog, by the way, and for a guy who's 23, he's remarkably switched on to all the things you've got to know, but not just knowing them, but sharing them and being open with them and so on. So definitely one to be scared of in the future, one to watch in the future. But and I knew that he was going to be strong on the first day, so I thought I'd sit in and, you know, not sit in because we left a story in a big group, but you're not allowed to draft, so we kind of left in a bit of a group. I was just sit towards the back, sort of see how things pan out, and then maybe wait for a good time to push on. Anyway, about 10 miles out of Astoria, for some reason, I decided to go on front for a bit just to show that I'm not drafting and maybe do a bit of work or whatever. And there was one of the camera guys. I saw him and I thought, is that the guy? Is it not? Is he gonna? So I was looking at him, wasn't looking down at the route on the GPS. There was another guy with me. I could hear him just over my shoulder. I thought I'm going to give it a bit of effort. This flatness. I couldn't hear anybody anymore. And yeah, so I looked round and everyone had gone, and we'd done about a mile in the wrong direction. Everyone had turned left. So that, I don't know, because I thought with what happened last year and the year before, I was definitely going to be, you know, a bit. I was not inconspicuous, put it that way. I was being marked, you know, and watched. So, you know, I thought maybe that's a good idea to sort of like drop off the back, like going the wrong way. Anyway, so I'm trying to sort of chase back on a little bit and sort of catch up with people. So I'm going past a few people who dropped off the back and so on. And we go off onto a cycle path. We're still sort of going past people and down a big hill, over some bumpy bits, out the other side, and hit air coming out of the tyres. So I got a puncture after that. Pinch flat in the bottom of the hill. So I figured I'd probably lost around about 15-20 minutes by this sort of time, and I just, you know, it's a long race, but I still want to sort of pull it back and get to where I wanted to get to on the first day, which was I'd got in my mind the top of Mackenzie Pass. So the first day was looking at you come down the coast, down the Atlantic coast for a little while, really nice kind of roads and scenery. And then we pull inland and we go past a place called Eugene, and then a long sort of 40-mile drag up towards the bottom of this climb to Mackenzie Pass. And I'd spied the top of that pass as being, first of all, it's not open to cars, so it's going to be pretty quiet. It's also going to be pretty cold. So I wanted to either get to the near side of the pass, but not all the way to the top. So I wanted to sleep where you're out of the cold air that settles into valleys, but you're not in the cold air that pushes over the top of the hill. So I was spying either a place to sleep before the woods stop to the peak, or get over the top and climb and get down most of the cold descent before I get too cold, and then sleep on the good side. But we got a good old tailwind down the west coast, and we were pretty flying. Ed was predictably out front, and I thought I'm not going to see him for a while, but I managed to catch a guy called Jason who wasn't really on my radar at the start of the race, until somebody said, "Did you hear about the guy who's the RAM guy?" Like this RAM guy. He's wearing a backpack, and I thought, oh well, we don't need to worry about him because mistake. He is so wearing a backpack in bike races is sort of it's this bad idea. It puts a lot more pressure on the sit bones. It's a lot more uncomfortable. It gets really hot, and that's why you'll see that most of the weight's distributed on the bike, and people don't tend to carry it on their backs. In the Tour Divide, it's anecdotally the bad thing to do by the people who drive it. So yeah, but then he was out front, and he was on a nice bike. He was, you know, you'll see his bike. The bike's the one the Cervelo, the deep dish wheels that he would run on the Ram, and so he had plenty of bounce on it. But It was aerodynamic, you know, and it looked the part. And so he was up there with Ed and Jesse as well, who are both strong on the climbs. And I caught up with him, and he said that he was riding with Ed and Jesse, and they were just a little bit ahead. Anyway, I saw Ed and Jesse coming out of a petrol station, gas station, as I'm going to start to call it if I'm not careful. And that was 100 miles into a place called Pacific City, and I was ready to stop as well, but he just stopped. He'd probably been there for like 10 minutes or something. Just stopped, ate, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to pretend I don't need to stop. And I rode with him for a while, and we rode over some hills, and he was way up the hills, riding strong with Jesse. And then got to the bottom of that and turned inland on the main highway, and my tyre blew out again. I think it was a bit of a dodgy fix, but the tyre blowing out, it caused about 4 pinch punctures in the wheel, just on the ground I was moving on when I pulled off. So I fixed it, pumped it back up, put it all back together. I should have checked it really. Put it all back together, pumped it up. It's not going up. I found a new pinch. Right, I fixed that one. Put it back together. Anyway, so I got through my spare engine tubes pretty quickly. Put that together, and then just thought, like, I'm going to the next place that I found food. So I pulled over and stopped. And I thought those guys were, you know, I might just drag them in later. But the first day was going. You know, it could have been a lot worse, but we had this tailwind, and then a bit later in the day I decided not to stop at all, so I went to like a Subway and got a Subway sandwich and ate it on the bike and put the rest on here for the climb, and thought, try and catch these guys back up, and I'll eat my way up the climb. I'll just throw a load of food and just snack all over. So we got this big tailwind. I got another puncture, and I'd just seen Jesse on the horizon, must have been Jesse, and I got up the top and I got another puncture, so I fixed that one. And so like I said, there's like a 40-mile, very slightly 1%, 0.5%, something like that, drag from Eugene up to the base of the climb. And just before that I called Jason again, and I was like, right, how you doing? It's just slow and steady, and so I thought, yeah, that's his, you know, that looks like a pretty good strategy for his working for him. And then so I managed to pull away from him, and I got up to the top there, and the Mike Dion and the camera crew were there, and he said that he'd just seen Ed and Jesse, and they're literally like 2 minutes ahead, just started the climb, and I was like, wow. So I said, I hope you tell him, because this is the whole self-supported issue is quite a grey area, quite a sensitive area for some people. So you particularly being at the front of a bike race like this, you want to make sure that nobody's getting help, that you're not getting any help, that nobody else is getting. So I said, I hope you tell him, you know, you're telling Ed that where I am as well. And he said, oh yeah, he's told me. So that was kind of cool. Those guys have filmed bike races before. Like the Tour Divide, so they were pretty good really with the whole. They never asked anyone to do anything twice. You know, they would just sort of fly on the wall. If you wanted to talk to them, if you wanted to tell them what's going on, they'd do it. But they're really experienced at filming an unsupported bike race and knowing how their influence could lead to telling people information or psychological, emotional support and things like that, because having people with changes in the nature of the race, and surely it's, you know, being followed and just going past somebody and having people kind of with you does change the nature of the bike racing. But anyway, so he told me that those guys were ahead, and I figured I might put a bit more effort in to catch him. And I went around a few corners and they were right there. And so I saw their tail lights, and they looked like they were riding up the hill chatting. And I thought, maybe I'll go and just, you know, I'll just reel them in. I'll sort of sit behind them for a while and then see what's going on. And I caught them a bit, and I was feeling quite good. I caught them a bit sooner than I thought. I thought, maybe I'll have to stop. So I just said, right lads. I thought, because a really twisty road up there, loads of trees, really dark. I thought, I'm going to try and get around the corner, get out of sight. So I got out and I did that. I just kept going straight past, got a bit of momentum, caught my stride. Look, I took you look back to see if they were following. I thought, and no one did. So I thought, right, I'm gonna have this. So I really put in like a good effort up the climb. Got away, put in a good effort to get a few turns ahead, and then sort of, caught my breath back. Well, I couldn't see the lights anymore. And then sort of got into a tempo, got over the pass by midnight, and started at 5 in the morning. Top of the pass is 300 miles, pretty good going, 90 miles to get to the top of that pass for all of us pretty much. It would take 5 minutes. And I was looking pretty good, feeling good. Not felt good all day. 300 miles in, nice path really. Down the descent, got another puncture. And I was manically fixed it, thinking I worked really hard to get over the top. Kind of as good as you can talk in a bike race of this nature and attack. But we're not talking breakaway or anything. It was soft attack, if you like. But trying to get some distance in between me and those guys so you can see me. And so I fixed the puncture really, really quickly, and then got through the next snow gate. The snow gate was closed at the top block. And I noticed 2 LED lights appeared behind me, Hartsang. And I thought it must be them, it couldn't be anything else, but it was just after the snow gate. And then these 2 lights, they got closer and closer and closer, and then they didn't get any more close. And they were, between me and those guys getting in the park out there, pretty close. And then I thought they're really uniform, really just the same width away from each other, the same kind of height. And I thought, or something, just dip beams on, and it sort of seemed to back off and stop. But I was a bit sort of spooked by it. I was a bit like, right, I need to get out of here. I need to get really far down the road. And so I got to the bottom, and the film crew gone around the thing there, and they had sort of some lights down there, and they weren't really prepared for us because they didn't think we were going to get to the top of the pass. They kept asking us all day, so do you think you'll get to the top of the pass today? And I was like, well, this tailwind, yeah, everyone who wants to get to the top of the pass. And sure enough, they were kind of like a little bit all over the place with dots. Like, do you hear already? They're in their baby bags and things. And I just went straight past, didn't even talk. I just wanted to get out of there. And we dropped into a place called Sisters, and I thought absolute maximum that's where I was going to get. And then another 20 miles down the road, there's a place called Redmond. And then another 20 miles down the road, there's a place called Prineville. And I'd not even looked at those the first day. I thought Sisters, maybe, if there's stuff in Sisters, maybe I'll get out of there a little bit down the road, busy there. And so I rode straight through there. There was nothing doing, nothing open. Found a tap on the back of the petrol station, filled the bottle of left before anyone could see me. And then I got to Redmond, where there was a 7-Eleven open, so I stopped sort of 8 there, took some food with me, and then I was pretty much slow into a crawl after that, and I spotted a US Post Office just on the side there. The thing about the US Post Office is they've normally got an office on one side. You might see I've got a photo of the one that's left in actually. It was a US Post Office. You see a street view, it's that post office. But there's the little office in one side, and then they have the PO boxes on the other side, and you can go in. It's normally quite warm, lit, little space in there. You can put your bike in, lay on the floor. Don't have to get any kit out here. Don't have to pack it, repack it. Really good for bike packing races when you don't want to be efficient and do anything. And so I did that. I set my alarm for 5 in the morning. It was about 3:30. So I'd get my head down for a bit, and I'd get out of there again pretty quick. It's good to be. I find it good to not sleep very much the first night because you're kind of excited and your heart's doing a lot and you can't really calm down. So I like to be properly nailed and tired while you go to sleep because I have problems getting to sleep at the best of times. So I like to be pretty much falling asleep on the bike, so that when I do sleep, I'm out like that. And so I fell asleep in the post office, not knowing where those guys and stopped.
Well, like Mike said, you sort of go into the start of day one and you have expectations. You've been online, you've been chatting to people, you've been looking at the list of riders and sort of sussing out who you think's going to be good, who you think's probably not going to be on the pace. And given all of that, given sort of sneaking around the internet and having a look at people, I had a list in my mind of people I thought I needed to watch on day one, and Mike being top of that list. But I didn't anticipate being at the head of the race at all. So I sort of set out with the mindset that I'd sit in the pack as not drafting, sitting in as much as you can in those kind of races and watch everybody else. That wasn't going to be me setting the pace. And so we all set out in sort of group formation. Pace stayed quite nice through Astoria. Really wasn't very high. And that was the point that Mike sort of took the lead and went straight on. And I'd ridden, because I'd been there for a week before the start, I'd ridden the first few miles about 3 times, so I knew exactly where the route was going. And it did still make me do a double take when he went straight on, because I thought, does he know something I don't? But I thought, I'm going to trust my instinct, I'm going to go with where I know it is, and took the left. And that was the point that I sort of separated off with Jesse and Jason. And we rode more or less together for then 20 or so miles, and it starts to get a little bit hilly as you get down the coast. And again, I really wasn't trying to push it at all, but every time the road went up a little bit, Jason really went off the back and Jesse went off the back a little bit. And I thought, well, I'm not really riding that hard, so I'm going to keep riding just as I am. And it seemed to be working really, really well. So I sort of found myself rather unexpectedly in front of the race through day one. And about 100 miles in, I stop at the gas station, have a snack, and that's when Mike appears. Just as I'm pulling out, I'm like, I thought I'd got a bit of a gap. I didn't know at this point really about his puncture problems or anything like that. I just saw him there. So we then rode together for a little bit, and I looked around, and he's gone again, and another puncture. And I then stopped a couple of times throughout the day for food, things like that. And I saw, the only guy I really saw was Jesse throughout that day. So about 6 o'clock, we ended up riding side by side, sort of chatting. The road up to Mackenzie Pass really isn't very trafficked, or at least not that time of day. So we had plenty of room to ride side by side, chatting, and seemed to have some kind of fixation on finding an ice cream place up that road. So we were stopping at every little group of lights and just having a nosy around to see if we could find ice cream, which was, I think, wishful thinking. I think we were slowing. As it got darker, I think you naturally tend to slow. It might just be me, but I find I naturally tend to slow as it gets darker. So we sort of looked at the pace that we were setting. It really wasn't very high at that point. We tailed off quite a lot. We got to the base of Mackenzie Pass and met the film crew and had a chat to them, and really just enjoying the experience. It almost didn't feel like a race at that point. And my goal for the day had been to get over Mackenzie Pass. It was a good 300 miles in. The tailwind had helped massively push us along throughout the day, and I was feeling pretty good, so decided to head on up Mackenzie Pass. I really didn't want to sleep at the top because it can get quite cold up there. There's still reports of being snow on the ground and it was still close to traffic, so I thought, I'll have a go, but I'm not going to stop on the top. So if I do make it over, I'm going to go down the other side. And right after we left the film crew, we really hadn't made too much of a start. Mike comes absolutely flying past on our left-hand side. And I sort of looked at Jesse and wondered if he was going to go. And if he went, I'd gone. And then he didn't go. And I thought, I'm not going to completely blow myself out at this point. I'm just going to sit in, ride the climb, nice and steady. It's a long race. And enjoyed it. It was a fantastic climb. Lovely, no traffic, nice big forest. We had a really bright moon as well, which was brilliant all up that climb. Stopped at the top, and Jesse throughout the race took apparently a ton of photos. And he stopped at the top and whipped his camera out and started taking photos around at the top. And then we headed down the other side, and we just the descent had just kind of tailed out. We'd done the steep section, and we saw Mike's light ahead of us. I think you had your rear light off, but you had your front light on. And so it took us a while to realise what it was. There was no rear light. We were expecting a rear light, and it's headlight. And my goal for the day had been to make it to that point, to the finish of the descent off Mackenzie Pass at the most. And I think at that point I let my planning get the better of me, and I really should have just pushed on, caught Mike. But I thought it's a long race. I don't want to push too hard at this point. So we bivvied there for about 4 hours at the bottom of the pass, right before Sisters. And that's kind of day one for me.
I think that's the benefit of experience, or something like stubbornness, is that if you just expect you can do it, if you've done it before, if you've done it without sleep before, you just think push on. If there's anybody anywhere near you, you don't go to sleep. If you've got a tailwind, or if you're near anyone who might catch you or see you or anything like that, it's not even a decision to be made. And so when I think this is probably your second event,
Yeah.
and I think Ed's going to carry that forward with him a little bit now.
I won't be going to sleep again.
And it's also a little bit of experience about just how much sleep do you expect to get and how good do you expect to feel the next day. And I think that's maybe where you said to me at the end that you just think you can't quite yet get your head into that amount of sleep, particularly early in the race. Whereas I woke up the next morning in the post office at 12 minutes before my alarm went off to the sound of a cleat going into a pedal, and it was just absolute sound of plastic cleat going into a rover. And I woke up and I'd been kind of like not really asleep because my heart was thumping along at night, turning something. And I just woke up to this, and then I thought it's got to be somebody, and I purely thought that they were looking in. They'd stopped to look at me asleep, so I'm off. And it was Jason Lane. They call him the Hammer on the ground, and it became kind of apparent to me at that point, and certainly dropped like doing the next 10 miles pretty harsh into Prideville when you sort of wake up and not really had anything to eat, and stopped there and looked at the track. It became apparent to me that the whole backpack thing, and he was on a liquid diet, so the reason for the backpack, and he was quite heavily loaded, which is the same reason that he was a little bit harder, slower at climbs, was he had 2 or 3 days of powder in his bag. So he didn't need to stop for food in the way that we stop for food. He just needed to stop, put some water in his bottle, put some powder in, put them back on the bike. And I thought, that's mental. But it's working. It appears to be working for him, and he didn't stop. So I saw him like top of this before this long drag up to the Kenzie Pass, and I thought I wouldn't be seeing him again for a bit. He just didn't stop, and then that sort of hour and a half, he was just steadily just moving and not stopping for food, not stopping for sleep, and he's got a lot of experience of doing that from Race Across America, and I'm thinking, I'm going to have to keep up with him now, and he's going to spoil my dinner, and I didn't think about not, because I thought, if he can do it, I can do it. And that is the sort of thing where you, certainly from my perspective, I think, if somebody else is capable of doing it, it can be done. And therefore, you've got to keep on doing it. And that was it. So I took off chasing after him, and I caught him not too far off over the sort of second climb of the day, maybe about. We were going through a little place called Mitchell, was a little general store that's very sort of mercantile, very sort of backcountry, wooden, big place for the student like the Western type of thing. A little cantankerous old couple in the grocery store, and I said, "Have you seen the cyclist?" And he said, "Yeah, we saw this one guy about 20 minutes ago, and he bought 2 gallons of water." So I went off chasing after him, and I'm like, "Oh, it's going to get steep out there when you go. Are you sure you want to be riding up there in this heat, in this time of day?" And, yeah, got to. So I didn't expect him to catch him that quickly, but I caught him just over the climb again, and he was tempered. His pace was, I think he was struggling that morning because he still hadn't slept. But his pace was consistent, and he wasn't stopping, and so my he suddenly appeared as like one of the guys to watch. So it was him and Ed on my radar, and I started to check out both where they were for the next couple of days. So we're heading now off into sort of eastern Oregon, and it gets pretty lumpy. There's significant patterns one after the other. The road surface turns to very coarse chip seals. It's getting quite rough in your hands, quite hot during the day. So a real sort of second day feeling when it's things are starting to become uncomfortable. You're going into that phase where it just starts to hurt, and you've got to kind of ride through it, because from there till about day 4-ish, that your motors are starting to kick in, and your fat burning and all of that is starting to happen, and that's when your body gets used to doing distance, and you can literally, it's all after those sort of few days, it's all about discipline. It's all about just not stopping. And it was hot that day, and yeah, he just didn't appear to be stopping. And so I was always looking at the gap between us. I went past him for 20 minutes or so, stopped again for a very quick snack, looking at him, trying to get out of the place before going, carrying on, and thinking about trying to build a gap now, so that I can get some sleep basically. So I wanted to ride hard because I knew he would be that little bit slower on the climb, and I could get myself a buffer. So I thought to myself, anything I can get now between us is what I can sleep for. And so yeah, another good day. 350 miles on the first day. The next day was 280, 300 I think again. And that got us over into Baker City. Again, it was 3 very significant passes, along kind of 50 miles, maybe about 60 mile, 70 mile straight down the services. And then disappeared down this canyon that just seemed to just descend forever, like you were descending into the middle of the earth down to this place called the Snake River. And it was a very surreal place with the bright moon and kind of no traffic around all of it. A bit weird, but that was probably to do with lack of sleep. And then I still didn't know if Jason was going to sleep. I still kind of wanted to track where I could. And I just rode until my lights ran out of battery, and I got another hour and a half, maybe, about another hour maybe on a picnic table down the bottom of the canyon before going over the state line into Idaho. And I think Jason stopped, I found out later Jason stopped for his first sleep in 46 hours, probably about 10 miles behind that point. And there was Idaho was had 2 of the biggest, hardest climbs really for me. It was certainly had the climb out of there, out of Snake River, was just really long and didn't have much food. I was falling asleep on the handlebars a lot until the sun came up and things like that. So that was really hard. I think I lost quite a bit of time on that, but. And then another climb up into Idaho, up into Grangeville, which is called Whitebird. It was baking hot that day as well. We've done quite a long stretch on quite busy roads as well. And there was a crosswind, a big crosswind, and it was switchback. So there's the old 95 highway that goes pretty much straight up to Grangeville, and we come off it on the route. Which is good for the traffic. It sends you through this tiny little village, and then on this really windy thing. So every time you got a tailwind, it was baking hot and you're just drenched in sweat. And then you turn and you get a headwind and you cool down. But against the headwind, it was properly stiff headwind. It was the type of thing that could go on to stop you. And so that was a good climb. And then there's another. After that, there was another real big one down into a big descent, really steep descent down into a place called Kuskia, and then across the Lochsa River, which was, if you see a page go past, 99 miles of twisting road, and it was pretty much no services for about 100 miles through that section. And I think in my plan, I was hoping to get somewhere down there and stop, and I did. I slept in at the toilet for about an hour. So what you've got to understand about the toilets in sort of out there, backcountry, Midwest, or in the Rockies and places like that, is that they're very clean, quite big. More importantly, the door's locked from the inside, so wildlife can't get in, and it's normally a bare sort of country in these places, as you'll find out. And so they're a good place again for just wheeling the bike in. Getting a bit of floor which is fairly clean, and lying down. That had this little roll mat. It was the blue thing on the back there that was hip to shoulder, so that you could roll it out and you could just lie on one side like that. And then I had a wrap jacket, 300-gram down jacket, a bivy bag for when I'm outside, and a silk liner. That was my sleeping kit. But when I could, I had some of them, some of the aero bars on the front, and I'd just roll it up and stick it in between there, and it would just make a nice little bit to it. Literally any time I slept, it would be on that, and that worked really well actually. And yeah, so I was, after the first 3 days, I think we'd done about 1,000 miles and 3.5-ish hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, and it was starting to tell, so things dropped off a little bit after that. But I got to Dillon on the 4th night, and that's in Montana, and there's a pass there. It actually takes you very close to the Tour Divide route in that area, and it's the terrain's different. There's some nice passes into this little place called Wisdom, and then had to sort of chase a storm. There was a storm rolling in, and I thought I want to get over to Dillon, and I was going to have a proper night's sleep. And I built a bit of a lead over Jason. I think it had gone up to sort of like an hour, or I don't know, probably about 3 hours by that sort of time. So I got into Dillon pretty well actually. Some fast roads up over there, some fairly shallow passes and some big downhills in Dillon. Had my first sleep inside in a motel, charged everything up, and rolled out there about 6 in the morning, and thought I don't care if anyone comes past me so long as I've had sleep and they haven't. And then I'd work about trying to get ahead, but I was still ahead by that point, and then got into sort of Montana and over to Yellowstone the next day, and hit sort of Yellowstone Park at sunset, which was amazing, really beautiful. The film crew managed to catch up with us on that point. Got some really nice things in there. They've got this little drone as well, which again, managed to get some aerial shots and things. So, and then it got ridiculously cold because you're climbing up to about 9,000 feet by that time. And you sort of top out in Yellowstone. And I'd got my down jacket on, I'd got all my clothes on. It was clear sky, bright moon. And then you cross over into Grand Teton National Park, and there's this huge downhill into sort of Flag Ranch area, and it looked amazing in the moonlight. I mean, I loved to have been there during the day. I don't know what it looked like for you, but it was just big waterfalls, big huge canyons and things, and then this lightning fast road that it must have been probably about -2 Celsius. And the wind chill was just amazing. I had everything on that I owned, and I was shivering. I couldn't let the brakes. I couldn't go more than about 40 miles an hour. And that descent was good for about 60, I would say. And if you could see and knew that the road surface was good and it was warm. So I stayed in a place called Flag Ranch, which was a bit strange because I got there at midnight, and I thought, it's bear country, it's too cold to sleep outside, and the kid I would really, if I already got chilled back, much chilled on the descent. But it's a proper tourist area, so I went to this Flag Ranch lodge and inquired about what the rooms cost were $275 a night. I thought 5 hours sleep, I don't need to. So I said, what have you got that's just, where can I sleep basically inside for the minimum amount? And they said, well, we've got these new little huts, which they call camping huts, and they've just got a foam mattress in them, and I could have one of those for $70. And I thought, yeah, go on then. And it took him about an hour or something. Somebody had they had a medical emergency. Somebody had had a seizure in another part of the complex, and the building all over the place. So he was radioing the security guard to get the keys across, but he couldn't because he was going with the ambulance and this sort of thing. So it got into the big, long, like 1:30 in the morning by that time, and in the end, the guy behind the desk was a bit unsure. I think it was me or something, obviously. And the other guy in the end, when he cottoned on that they actually had people waiting there all that time, he said, just give them a room, So I ended up getting a really nice room in that area of Yellowstone, which I'll tell you about. And then just after that, it was all about getting over. I got up in the morning again. I think that was the closest Jason got to me then. He was maybe 40 minutes behind me that morning, and it was all about building that lead, stopping for long enough for lunch, and just having the sensation that he's got to stop sometime. Yeah, he's only got to fill these bottles off, but his discipline will, you tend to go through, so first day you'll be, you go into something, buy something, pay for it, get back on your bike, put it away while you're moving. You're so efficient like that. But as the days move on, you just go on Facebook, and you'll see a picture there where I'm eating and I'm trying to do, so you're multitasking the whole time, and you just get that little bit slower at it. So you might have a stop for food on the first couple of days, 20 minutes bang out there, and you might be hanging around for about 45 minutes by the end of the race, and that's where the time's lost. Same in 24-hour racing. Every time you're not riding your bike is minutes lost, and that's where riding hard can't make up for it. You blow yourself up too much. And I thought he's going to go through that a bit as well. He's going to slow down. So it was always that battle to just keep ahead. And any time he did something, I'd have to do it, or backwards and forwards. And planning that where I was going to ride all night, and where he's ridden all night, and when he'll be tired, and things like that. And that kind of looking at what people were doing, and it got to the stage where I think I'd seen him ride all night one night, and I'd stopped and slept again, and he was still a couple hours behind. So it was good. It was good to sort of keep that buffer, and I was sort of starting to relax a little bit. And that got us through the Rockies. We got to we've got a really big wind in so through the basin, which is again the Wyoming sort of big open spaces. It's quite high desert country, so you're up quite high, going over some passes, but never really getting too low. It's a few big climbs, but it's high up there. We've got crosswinds coming and blowing tumbleweed through the night and things. And then we got going into from Rawlins then into Colorado. We got some really big side winds across that area, and what he was doing, he was sending. You see a picture of him sending near a post office. So he was going to the post office too, and he was collecting these bags of powder. So he was getting like 3 kilo bags of powder that he had to get to the post office to support. And that, it turns out, was why he was riding at night a lot, because he'd got to get there during opening times. And I'd sort of learned this, after the first couple of days. I thought, he's got to stop somewhere and getting these bags and things. And I got to Breckenridge, and I mailed a parcel out that had a frame bag like the one Ed's got, and in that it had some spare batteries, sort of some of these caffeine little tub things, spare tyre and spare chain, the 2 main things. So I was just going to replace the rear tyre and the chain at halfway. But they didn't get it, or I found out now that they got it, but they weren't, it was in the wrong pigeonhole or something, and the guy behind the counter just didn't pick it up. So I couldn't get my parcel at halfway. And then by halfway, that 7 days, we're looking at, that was my judgment about halfway, dropping out of the Rockies was kind of Breckenridge, and the whole kind of western side of the route was like this, up to a sort of point, and it got to Hoosier Pass, which is 11,000, nearly 12,000 feet, and then just descended for about 250 miles, something like that. And overall descended, and then it sort of bottomed out about 1,000 feet down in Kansas, and then it looked flat going through. So we were all of the kind of mindset that once you get through the Rockies, you're pretty much flat for a while, and we probably got 2,000 miles to that point, and then the rest is sort of 2,300, something like that. So we were looking at that as sort of halfway, and I got to Breckenridge on 7.5 days, I think. And by the end of that day, I was in Pueblo, which was an interesting place to be in at night. So you'll see that in the film actually, if you ever watch it. And that was kind of where that was halfway.
So I woke up on the morning of day 2. Me and Jesse had 4 hours sleep, so we were feeling quite refreshed. We sort of had a chat the night before about what time to set the alarm for. It wasn't really it was a sort of truce in a way. That we were both going to set the alarm for the same time, so it went off the same time. Having done one of these races before and having done a lot of my own long rides, a lot of touring, I was really quite efficient at packing up. It takes me about maximum 5 minutes to get everything away. It's just sleeping bag, big bag, in the pack, off you go. And so I jumped up with an alarm went off, shoved all my kit in, looked over at Jesse. He's still laying on the floor, completely crashed out. And I said to him, I'm not going to wait, but you'll probably catch me down the road because, as Mike said, right after Sisters, which is where we all camped out of, there's two other towns in pretty close proximity. So I thought I'm going to stop for breakfast at one of those, and he's going to catch me at some point. So I set off, and I was feeling quite good, and I thought, well, I won't stop at the first town because I'm feeling good and I can put some time into him, especially if he stops there. So I stopped at the third one, checked the tracker there, and I think he must have gone back to sleep after I left because he was stood way back down the road. And I thought, well, I'm not going to let him catch me, so I had a really quick breakfast there, and off I went. I was feeling really quite good on day two. Biggest drawback was the heat. I was having trained a lot in the UK, pretty wet winter, pretty mild, and we were getting some pretty hot temperatures, especially with the climbing we were doing. And the Cascade Mountains are kind of almost high desert. There's some forest up there, but it's a lot of sort of shrubbery. And the roads are quite wide, so there's not a lot of shade. And I was baking up some of the climbs there. It was really, really hot. And that was the only thing that was really setting me back. I was feeling really fresh. 3 big climbs going into Baker City, which is where I ended up ending my day 2. And they hurt. They really hurt. And I sort of thought about getting a little bit beyond Baker City, but I think in the end I stopped about 5, 6, 7 miles before Baker City, just because they really killed the legs. And I thought, get my head down here, get a little bit of rest, push on in the morning, especially because I knew at that point I'd had a bit of a gap on Jesse. I wasn't really as much watching the guys in front of me as I was watching that gap when I could check the tracker, because although I had a US phone SIM card, a US SIM card on my phone, there's not a lot of service in the mountains, so it was sort of Wi-Fi when you took a break. We were checking that, and so I got my head down just outside of Baker City, another 4 hours, and then pushed on. And it was on the start of day 3 that I started to have some real problems with saddle sores. I'd sort of felt them the night before, but this was when they really flared up, and I could feel them all through that day. They were really niggling at me. I couldn't get comfortable on the saddle. I wasn't comfortable on the bike. And I don't think it was helping that it was hot. I think I was sweating a lot. I had chamois cream down there. I think all in all it turned into not a very pretty situation above my saddle. So I won't go into detail, but it wasn't very nice. And that sort of persisted all through day 3. And I was trying to remember where I ended up spending that night. I think I made it over into Idaho, but it was that's the base of Whitebird Pass. So I went down into the big canyon that Mike was talking about by the Snake River and camped right before Whitebird. Climb, big zigzaggy climb he was talking about. And when I stripped off to go to sleep, got my bivy bag out, slept on the side of the road, and right before I dozed off, I felt down there, and it was just raw skin, all raw skin. And so, following morning, I wake up, tried to sit in the saddle to climb up Whitebird climb. That's not happening. So out the saddle the whole way up the climb, which just wasn't nice. And made it to a trucker stop in Grangeville, I think, which is right before descend again into Kooskia. And I was looking for somewhere to have breakfast. There's nowhere really open to have breakfast. There's a sort of burrito place at a trucker stop. So I stopped there, and while I was waiting for my order, the guy, I sort of got chatting to him, and he basically said, "You stink." And he said, "We've got a shower out the back if you want to use it." So I had a quick shower there, cleaned everything out, and then ate my breakfast. And I felt much better after that. But all throughout the day, it was really a case of trying to manage these saddle sores. After you descend into Kooskia, you end up in a big valley basically, and you're following a river, it's the Lucia River, all the way up over Lolo Pass, and it's really gradually uphill pretty much the whole way. And that road's not the best. It's quite heavily trafficked, and I just couldn't get comfortable. In the end, I thought I have to do something. I got my arm warmers and leg warmers put in here and put them over the saddle just to give a bit of squish, bit of padding, and that seemed to help a little bit. But by the time I got up to the top of the climb, I actually had blood coming out of my shorts, so it was really, really not nice. Descended off Lolo Pass. sort of the state line with Montana, and decided to get to Hamilton, where I knew I could get a hotel. And you look at the maps that I carried the whole way, they have service indicators, so every town will have a series of symbols next to it, which will tell you what you can expect to find there, and they're not 100% accurate. You know, there are places where it'll be indicated they have services, you show up, there's nothing there. Good, like up. Finally get everything in my bags, wheel it back out to the road, and there's this family of Asian tourists at 4 in the morning taking pictures of the bear. Absolutely surreal. But I think that kind of huge adrenaline rush gave me a massive, massive kick, and I had a really, really good day after that. You descend into Teton, and I had some breakfast there, and then climb up Togerty Pass, which is quite a decent climb. But once you hit the top, it's a long, long descent until you climb into the basin. And I picked up a massive tailwind going down there, and I must have knocked out 100 miles doing about 30 miles an hour average. It was nuts. I've never had anything like that on one of these races. Just flying. Really, really felt good. And ended up about 6 o'clock right on the edge of the basin. I think it's a place called Lander, and had some food there. Picked up a second meal and just thought, right, I'm feeling good. I'm going to ride into the night. I'm going to get as much of the basin done in favourable conditions. Because if you don't do it in favourable conditions and you hang around, it's going to get worse. There's high winds through there all the time, and if you run into a headwind, it's a nightmare. That happened to me the first time I rode through it in 2010. I was just knocking into a headwind all day, and it's brutal. And there's not a lot out there in the way of services, so I just went. So I just went and thought I'd knock it out, and I got really most of the way across the basin before I went to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning. And got my head down, and as I was getting my head down, I had wild horses running right 10 feet away from me. It was awesome in the moonlight, absolutely brilliant, really great moment, great contrast to the night before. And yeah, I woke up in the morning, and I was right on the outskirts of Rawlins, which is the first services you get to in a long time. Rode into Rawlins and thought, I won't stop in Rawlins because I've done the route before. I know there's a really good cafe place just down the road from here, and you're going into another area where after Rawlins there's really not a lot of services for about 60 miles to a place called Saratoga, and the cafe was shut when I got there, and it was about 5 miles outside of Rawlins, and I thought, I'm not going back. So I rode through to Saratoga, and I was really crashing by the time I got there, and then we started having really brutal crosswinds going up into Colorado, and you're climbing all the time. It's sort of false flats with slightly more significant climbs, but not really any passes, just constant gradual uphill. And yeah, I had my sort of breakfast, which was about 11 o'clock in Saratoga, and pushed on up. But it was really, really brutal winds, and I felt awful. In contrast to the day before, I felt great, felt awful. Finally made it to the top of Willow Creek Pass, and finally got my legs back then, and I thought, I'll just try and make it down into Kremling, which is Willow Creek Pass is I think the second highest pass on the route, and it's up at about 10,000 feet, so I wasn't going to camp on the top of there. Descended down towards Kooskia, and I was shivering on that descent. I had all my waterproofs on, all my warm gear on, really cold. Made it to the bottom, warmed up a bit, rode to near Kooskia and bivvied down there. I actually slept inside my sleeping bag with all my waterproofs on, with my bivvy bag on the outside, and had quite a good night's sleep. But when I woke up, everything was frosted. My bottles were frozen, my brake cable was frozen. Absolutely, temperature really must have dipped overnight. And so I sort of rode on a bit with no brakes, and they finally thawed. And you go up from there up to Hoosier Pass. Brilliant climb up Hoosier Pass. It's not really that steep, it's quite gradual. Beautiful sunny day, really enjoying it. I wanted to get up Hoosier Pass. I wasn't really taking photos, but I wanted.
So if you saw the route there that just flashed up, it goes along sort of northern into Montana, and sort of comes down through Colorado, and then that leg where it sort of shoots out east, that's what we were thinking was about halfway. So Pueblo is just that there. And we thought, yeah, 7 days to get there. This bit across Kansas is pretty much flat, gets a little bit hilly in Missouri, it's a little bit hillier in Kentucky, and then you've got some more a bit of a climb maybe to get over into Virginia, and then you've got away with it really. And so we didn't pay too much attention to that side of things. I've since learned in sort of planning for tonight actually, and looking at the actual amount of climbing, that there's just the state line between Colorado and Kansas. If you take that as about halfway of the mileage, there's more actual ascent gain in the east than there is in the west. It's like a sawtooth profile. So Kansas was pretty flat, so looking forward to getting ahead down long flat roads, and then probably knocking out about 300, 350 miles maybe. It was side winds, really harsh side winds when we were getting across there. Into eastern Colorado, they were talking in some of the cafes about trucks being blown over the day before and things like that. And I was glad I didn't have a frame bag at that sort of time, and I was glad I wasn't on the deep sectioned wheels and the aero bike that Jason was behind me. That was my sort of saving grace. And but you know, across this section, he was looking maybe more aerodynamic. I thought he's on the flat, the weight won't bother him so much. He'll go a bit better. To cut a long story short, because I think how are we doing for time? How are we doing for time?
It's 5 to 9. So.
5 to 9. Okay. Well, we'll get through the last bit a bit quicker. The side winds basically all through Kansas, and that just it beat us up because every now and again we'd have to turn into the wind as well, and there was huge winds. And I think that was when things unravelled. That we weren't making these massive mileages we thought we were going to do on the flat. We were doing maybe 200 miles at best through that section, and there was another 2,000 to go, and it was looking like lower and lower, kind of mileages through there. It actually got better when we got into Missouri. There's more hills. I was feeling a bit better. The sort of rolling hills. And then we took the ferry there across into Kentucky, and the ferry shuts at about sort of 10 o'clock. I got there at midnight. I didn't know. I thought there was a bridge until I got there, and there was just a river that I couldn't cross. So I got head down for 6 hours going into Kentucky, and then Kentucky going through the Appalachians. It was just up and down, that steep climb, pretty steep climbs, one after the other. And apart from the drivers in Kentucky were amazing. They would sit behind you for a good 5 minutes sometimes, several car lengths behind you before going around you. But most of the people so I went through there on a Friday and Saturday night, and they said you don't want to be riding your bike at night in Kentucky because all the drivers are drunk. I was thinking that's why they were doing that, but. Even during the day, they were just the most patient riders on all the routes. It was a really big surprise. And but we get down into sort of eastern Kentucky, and it got a little bit more sort of wild and backcountry around there. It's a pretty interesting place to be during the night. And it's just a place called Hazard around that sort of area in the Appalachians. You can just, I'll let you imagine it for yourself. So I don't think you could really describe it. And I went to that place in Boonville as well. It really was the boonies down there. And but it was just slow. It was just really slow going 3 days. I was still going 3 days from the end of it. And it was just a really hard work getting across that section. And I think we all underestimated that, and it was probably some of the hardest riding I've done because it was just not rewarding in that way. You're not making the progress you thought you were going to. So you start and give yourself a little bit more of a break. You start and go easy on, maybe you'll sleep a little bit more. Maybe you'll go in a hotel, or maybe you'll go in, you'll stop for dinner and for a bit longer, or things like that. So that really kills your discipline when you're not actually making that progress. And I think that will add that into the mix. Add to the fact that we've done the first 2,000 miles in 7 days. I mean, we've really gone out too hard, and I chased this guy who wasn't sleeping, which is a bit of a stupid thing to do. And then just thought of that as half, just the rest will be easy. I think that's one of the big mistakes that we all made. Jason said that when he came in, he was predicting maybe 15 days, and she just laughed. She said, "I've got this stupid sheep at the schedule," and it was a bit of a joke really on how we thought the rest of the ride would go. So I think doing it again, we would have been able to pace ourselves a lot better. And I think as times come out, the end finishing time is not an awful lot to write home about. I think it can be beaten quite. I would say easily, but by someone who's done it before, it wouldn't be too difficult to put together a better schedule in that way. But it did make the last half of it, we're just running on empty really a lot of the time. Towards, I would say the actual last 3 days, not 3 days, but I was having to have a nap in the afternoon, so we'd get to sort of 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's really baking hot, and that's the kind of solar noon must have been about maybe 2 in the afternoon, and then the last couple of hours there, the heat just rose, and it was getting to the stage where I couldn't keep my eyes open, and I was ended up bouncing off the road into the ditch. And so I said, "No, you can't do this," and she's got no one to watch out for you. You'd have a drink, you'd have a high caffeine energy drink, you'd have get some. I ended up buying some little like Pro Plus type caffeine tablets. Had 2 of those and a Red Bull. Still falling asleep in that. I pulled over for a 20-minute nap. I couldn't have been. Well, I set my alarm for 20 minutes. I didn't really go to sleep. Sort of. I didn't feel like I'd gone to sleep, but I woke up. If you've ever felt that way, you don't think you're going to sleep, and then you wake up. So you must have been asleep for like maybe 10 minutes. And then the caffeine kicked in and we were flying, and that happened for 3 days on the trot. We just get to that, and Jason said that was happening as well. You just completely switch off, and that was something that I'd never really experienced before. So I don't think I pushed that hard early, and then had to sort of keep that pace on and get into that situation. But that napping got more and more kind of extreme until the end really. And the main thing about the end, the best part of it, you'll see a photo going through some mist. I go up to Vesuvius, which all these people have talked about, this climb, it's really steep, it takes you up onto the Blue Ridge Parkway, and it's a real beautiful part up there. Is that as a treat to myself, I saw Jason was by that time about 150 miles behind. As a treat to myself, I wanted to go through that in the dawn, so rather than knocking out the last and not sleeping that night, decided to sleep. I found this quite a posh hotel, as it turned out, and I slept on that porch. Little rock cabins. They actually had the foyer was open. They had these really beautiful, plush, big sofas. I didn't quite have the nerve to go and lie down on the sofas, and they had an espresso machine in the corner. I didn't quite have the nerve to go and do that. But they had a nice wooden decking on the outside and some plug points, so I could plug the things in and sleep for 4 hours. And I woke up and we've got the Blue Ridge Parkway at dawn, and it was just the icing on the cake really for the race. You kind of know it's in the bag. It's yours to lose in a way. It's by no means easy, because it was a really hard day on the last day. But that was my treat to myself, and I would have done it again in a heartbeat, because there was I think we saw 2 cars there, whereas it's all RVs and big trucks go through there all the time. Not trucks, but tourists through there all day. And I got it pretty much to myself in those conditions, and it was a real nice finish to the ride really. And from then on it was just get to Yorktown. Had to have another couple of naps really to get there. There's another sort of 200-mile day to finish, and then it typified the whole ride for me. I got to a place called Ashford or something, Ashland, and it was 100 miles to go, and it was 6 o'clock in the evening, and I sort of tweeted to everybody, I'm going to be there by midnight, I'm going to get this out, I'm going to knock this out, I'm done with it, I'm ready to get my head down. I time trialled it for about 5 hours. I'd done it for 4.5 hours maybe. I got to a place called Jamestown, and I was on for it. I was like, Jamestown's maybe 35 miles out, so maybe for 2 hours from there to get to the end. I've got this up there by midnight, and it was they call it the Colonial Parkway. It's a really coarse concrete pathway, and we went out on this sort of like headland around for about 10 miles on this, and it just shook me to death. I've still got 25C tyres on. They're probably a little bit too less for this, because they're a little bit too small for this, because you do get kind of bounced around by a lot of the high bits just off the highway on the shoulder, and my hand had started going numb, and strange things started to happen, and I hit this parkway, and I couldn't do more than 10 miles an hour on it. It was just vibrating so much that I thought that's typical for the whole ride. It's just trying to stop you get to the end, and it ended up that the last 25 miles is on this, and I thought it was just from Jamestown to Williamsburg, which is 10 miles, and then we got onto probably the nicest piece of tarmac for the whole ride, which is about 20 yards long. And then, because that avoids going through a tunnel on the Colonial Parkway, you're not allowed to go through. And then it's back onto this 15 miles to Yorktown, the last 15 miles of stuff, and it's got just this big concrete slab, and it's got a bump in it, so you get like a bump, and it's just shaking me, and I nearly quit then. What I did, I pulled over and I let all of the air out of my tyres. I literally had about 20 psi, and I was rolling in on flat tyres, and it was nice like that. And I got in at midnight, about 14 minutes. Midnight. Yeah, no, it was midnight. And I was done, and there was no one there. Well, there was the two guys from the film crew at Yorktown, so the big column you see is the finish. Hunter and Mike were there, and it was Hunter and Eddie, and there was a couple who'd come from somewhere that I don't know if they'd heard about the race or were just passing by, and then another couple had come on a motorbike, and they appeared to be quite high, I think, or something, and it was just the strangest situation. People I'd never had to know what to say to them, and they started saying things like, "Oh, you're going to come to our house? Come to our house, you can stay in our house." "Oh, but we're on a motorbike, so you have to ride there." I thought they were people who knew somebody, or knew us, or knew of the race, because you get people connected with the race that will come and finish. I knew Billy Rice's family were in Yorktown, and I was all ready to go to their house, but I didn't want to. I just thought that that's what was going to happen, and I was really worried. But then the film crew said, "People are not from our hotel." I was really glad. But it's quite an odd place to finish. There's no shops, there's nothing there, and nothing like that. But it was done, and that was it. I was just happy to be finished more than anything. It was great to win, and Jason was a real fierce competitor, and it's great to race somebody of his calibre and have that difference that we talked about at the end about supporting versus unsupporting. See how his strategy worked out. I don't think I'll take him back on one of these things again, but it was really interesting with his strategy of not having to stop for food and things. But it wasn't easy at all. I think it was a really, really stressful race. But it wasn't that I was just glad that it was over.
So, having camped right outside Pueblo, got up in the morning, and I was feeling, I think for the first time since really quite early days in the race, I was closer to Jason than Jason was to Mike. Which isn't saying it was a close gap, but I think in my mind that was my target. I wasn't looking back anymore, I was starting to look forwards. And I had a really good first day into the flats, and Mike was talking about the wind and blowing trucks over. It was actually so bad that coming out of Pueblo, I saw a truck that had been blown over. It was carrying bottles or something. It was glass all over the road. So it was really windy, but it really wasn't affecting me too badly on that day. And I got an almost 300-mile day going out into the flats, which was brilliant, really, really great day. And I went to bed and I thought, awesome, I'm gonna do the same again tomorrow, and we're gonna start to put really good distance in. And the following day, the wind shifted to be this brutal cross headwind. It was awful. That was my shortest day of the race. I think I did 175 miles. Absolutely awful. I was getting really sunburned as well. I was wearing Factor 50 sun cream, but it really wasn't making any difference. And I wrapped my buff around my arm where it was worse, and that just made my hand swell up because I wrapped it too tight. And I was really disintegrating. And there's a brilliant bike shop in Newton, Kansas, run by a guy called James. And that really was kind of saving grace. rolling into there, and yeah, really just service your bike, and his wife cooked me breakfast, and absolutely fantastic, and that kind of reinvigorated me. But I've lost, in going through Kansas into Missouri, I think I lost almost an entire another day on Mike and Jason. It really was where I lost most of the time, and I was really quite miserable. I was miserable in the evenings for about 3 days, but I felt quite good during the race, during the day, so it was quite an odd to see how my mood went up and down, but very, very glad to hit the Missouri state line. And I had 3 punctures on that last day to finish off Kansas. It just felt like it wouldn't let me go. And that's when I put the new rear tyre on, which was the only mechanical thing I had to do for the whole race. I've still got the same chain cassette on there that I used in the race. It's got 5,500, 6,000 miles on it now. It's still going, which is brilliant. And really glad to hit Missouri. The climbs just sort of reinvigorated me. I was enjoying it a lot more. The flats, when you're in the same position all day long, really hurts. That hurts me mentally, physically. Fortunately, the saddle sores had really started to heal by this point. I'd been able to take the bandages off, but the flats just sucked the life out of me, basically, with the heat and humidity, and mosquitoes were terrible. Sleeping at night, I was so tired when I slept at night, I didn't really notice them biting me. And then when I rolled into Newton and had my 3rd shower of the race at James's place, the guy that runs the bike shop, and I took my shirt off, and I just had all these mosquito bites, just for 200-300 bites. Awful. I was falling apart a bit, but Missouri really reinvigorated me, and I felt much better with the climbing, enjoying it a lot more. Made it into Kentucky, and it's really quite sort of an odd place, the east of Kentucky. I've never been anywhere quite like it. It's got some of the poorest counties in the whole of America packed in there, and it's, people's houses almost are kind of trailers, and then with a load of junk piled up, and that's what it looks like. It's people's front porches with piles of broken stuff up to the roof. It's nuts. But everybody was very friendly, really nice. Couldn't have been nicer people. And started to really kind of get my legs back going through these climbs up towards the Appalachians, and really enjoying the race again, which I hadn't been through Kansas. And it was really sort of putting in the good miles for me. Happy with what I was doing 200 odd miles a day, and I wasn't at this point trying to catch anybody or really watching what was going on behind me, because it was so far back at this point. And really enjoyed the Blue Ridge Parkway, and just happy to knock the race out. But the humidity was brutal, as well as the heat coming through the last couple of days. You'd be riding at night and everything would be soaked. I didn't get rained on once during the entire race. It was dry, but I got wet every night coming through the mountains, just with all this mist and humidity. Everything got soaked. Phone died. My GPS kept packing in, so I was navigating off the maps for most of it. And yeah, that was the big challenges through there with heat, hills, and humidity, really. Happy to come off the Blue Ridge Parkway. You sort of descend off there, and then the route takes you on the last 200 miles through the most circuitous, backroady, just indirect. You'd get signs to places, and it would say Charlottesville, 80 miles, and then you'd look at your maps, and it's 120 miles to Charlottesville, and you're like, what? And then sort of really, again, the race not letting you go, trying to finish it off. I think I was sick twice. I couldn't keep my dinner down going into the finish line. So I think Mike was waiting at the finish line, and you guys were watching the tracker, and I was just slowly falling behind the expectations of where they thought I'd finish, because it was hard right to the end. It was hard riding. And as Mike said, you hit this Colonial Parkway, and you're done. You think you're on your victory lap, and it just shakes the life out of you. So you arrive at the finish line quite sort of miffed about that. But great to see Mike there. The film crew were there. Billy Rice's family came out, so they had signs up. I had a really great reception, which was brilliant. But really pleased with how the race had gone, and really pleased to be done with it.
Okay, folks, we're going to take a short break, so go and get yourself a bunch of beers. And then we're going to do a Q&A session with Ed and Mike about equipment, kit and stuff. Okay, so adjourn for about 10 minutes.
Don't do it. My USB stick. I saw something on here about the USB stick.
Yeah, we all chill down, please. Silence. Yeah. What do you call a chicken? Oh, there it is. Chicken Caesar salad. 400th time it got Right, who's got questions for Mike and Ed?
Let's get one sitting down.
Yeah, everyone sit down, please.
Give me a few seconds to get down.
I like it. It's a good one. Right.
We're going to go for like a 10-15 minute Q&A because these run on a bit.
Yeah.
And one of the best bits about tonight is networking, chatting, having a beer, and we love that. We're going to cafes for that.
Yes.
I definitely feel tonight. First of all, we need to offer a huge.
Yeah, everyone stand up and give a clap to Ed and Mike. And you swore there and said, they are amazing.
Right, it's quite incredible to hear their stories. Now, I'm sure a lot of you got some questions. There was one question coming straight away, so I'll start with this one, which is a great question, especially for me because I throw a bit of support. I think from the outside, a lot of people look at these events and they think, they're riding a bike, he's wearing a t-shirt, they get paid to do this. It's a car.
What?
I think Mike hit it on the head. There's a relationship and a partnership, and we are still cycling. We're not Team Sky here. We're building something. But the point is, these guys had a journey to make, and a lot of people, their parents, their friends, their family, anybody they met along the way, they all contributed to their support. But the question was,
It's really embarrassing.
Come on, Rich. Come on, stand up.
Rich has got a question.
Rich from the BBC. He can do with eating more, but yeah.
It's really embarrassing. I wasn't going to ask this question to sort of public.
It's a great question for me. So go.
Really inspiring talk, right? Everything you've done is incredibly inspiring, and I'm one of the people that constantly feels inadequate, and like I'm not pushing myself hard enough, and I'm not realising my sort of potential on the bike. I don't know what I can do. The time off work, the money, like how do you fund these inventions? Like how does it happen? Like I work all day, every day. I get up, I go to work, I come home, I might go out on a bike ride, I'll go to sleep, I'll do the same thing again. I'm sort of stuck in this rut. How do you do it?
Good question. How do you fund an adventure?
Michael, come on.
I think it comes down to a lifestyle choice, really. You know, you can't have everything. I don't have a house or a nice car or I've got a few nice bikes that I managed to blag at or something. But yeah, I think we go out there and do stuff, and I think the minimal sort of feel of it as well. Like taking this much kit and riding across America gives you a sense of empowerment. You just don't need things that you might think you need. Or losing the job and going and finding something else to do that you've done yourself and you made yourself, you made your own opportunities, and being in that situation where you just have to do it. Like being in a situation where you pretty much run out of everything you've got and you've got to get yourself home. Putting yourself out there and putting yourself in that situation and doing it and getting on.
Not really answered the question.
Not getting back.
Let me answer it a little bit. I'm going to start to answer it for you to finish off because I think the answer to the question is Mike busted his arse as a cycle courier, and he's also an engineer, and he has in between adventures done some contract engineering, so he has a brain, he has an ability to work. You explain. I mean, you do earn some money, and then you spend it. Go into debt and earn some more.
I think what I was getting around to saying is that you just, by putting yourself out there and going and winging it, basically, you learn that you can get by with very little. And that sort of seeps into your own life where you just don't need things at home and you just need to be able to ride your bike and you have a bit of freedom. And I lived in different places for the last 10 years and rented and, you know, and gone to this job over here and that job over there. it's not how a lot of people do it, and I don't have things a lot of people have, but you wake up every day and you think, if I made the same decisions again, would I do it? And hell yeah, because it's just not the life that most normal people would want to choose.
What about Ed's experience? He's a student.
I completely agree with Mike. You've got to prioritise these things. You've got to take a leap of faith. So the first time I've ever had a sponsor was for this race, and they gave me an amazing frame, and then that was stolen. So I basically self-funded this as well. So everything that I have ever done, I've self-funded. It is a case of, I was a student for 3 years. Every single one of those 3 years, I worked a full-time job as well as doing my degree. I was a full-time student and worked a full-time job. I would go to work, I worked at a bike shop, I'd go to work, I'd leave for an hour and a half for a lecture and I'd come back. So I worked pretty much full days. But that let me have incredible summer holidays. So this summer before I started, I rode across America. This summer of my second year, I rode from northern Norway to Gibraltar. And it is because I love doing these things and I'm willing to make sacrifices in other parts of my life where I don't have necessarily as much of a social life as a lot of people do, because I go and ride my bike, or I'm working, or my time's always full. But the trade-off is you get these incredible experiences, and I find the more of them that I do, the more of them I want to do, and the more that becomes a priority.
Okay, any more questions?
Great question.
Okay, that gentleman over there.
There was a post on the way around, and you stop at some sort of service station, use a scale from the way you game or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And everybody, the guess was like, we're supposed to guess how much the bike weighed. And everybody put in answers, and I was waiting for the answers.
Oh,
I can't remember.
It was a bit heavier than most people were guessing, so I was a bit embarrassed.
The question was, if you didn't hear at the back, the question was, during the race, was how much did the bike weigh, roughly?
It was 30. Was it 31 or 33 pounds? I think
Fully
it was-
loaded?
I think it was 33. But I had 2 full bottles, and that's 2 pounds.
I weighed mine before the start. The bike on its own was just under 18 pounds to build, and then bags on top without water or food took it to about 28. So there's about 10 pounds of gear in there. With food and water, that's going to be up in the low 30s.
Yeah.
Did you weigh yourselves before and after?
Yeah, I was about to say,
Your
yeah.
muscles getting-
That's a good point.
Well,
First, I did interject there. When Ed and Mike met this afternoon, someone was going for a bike run this afternoon, and we were all running late, and Ed came in, and the first thing Mike said to Ed was, "Blimey, you've put some weight on." And I asked Ed about this later. He said, "Yeah, after about 2 days, my shorts were back." Explain this weight thing, because weight on the bike, your physical weight. We all know about Bradley Wiggins getting slim, can go up the hills. But your weight loss is automatic.
you just can't eat enough of these things to keep your weight. I don't think you can do it. You're eating all the time. I'd be having 2 dinners every day just to try and eat more, and I was hungry, really hungry all the time. And just show you snacking even when you're on the bike. Go to a gas station, buy a couple of bags of gummy sweets, and then you eat so much that you get sick of it. So you don't go with your typical preferences. You go into a gas station, you buy whatever looks good. That's what you eat, and that's what you're eating on the bike. But it's not enough. So I think I started I tried to put on a bit of weight before the race. It didn't really work. You guys don't know me. This is the most I've weighed in 3 years right now. So, I think I was about 150 pounds at the start of the race. I was definitely less than 140 when I finished. I was quite skeletal.
So I was about to say, like, even for a 24-hour sail race, I try and put a stone on before I race. And then yeah, seriously. And it's always off by the end of it. Yeah. I've got a bit of a paunch going on before the race. So yeah.
One of the reasons I do this is because I like the guilt-free eating. Family-sized trifles with 2 monks.
And also, when you guys went to Kentucky, did you have the fried chicken? What?
Not burgers.
I didn't seem to have it there.
Really? What, they don't have fried chicken?
The main export.
Right, anyone else got any questions? Right, Gareth with the bald head.
Yeah. We've got questions from the internet, people watching the live stream, and this actually follows on perfectly. What stands as your most memories of East Kentucky if it wasn't the fried chicken?
A real question. Where's that question coming from?
That's come from Nathan Jones, who I believe is actually from the States.
In Kentucky?
I believe so.
Hello, Nathan Jones. Hi, Nathan.
Hello! Hello, USA! USA? Right, next question.
Question again.
Gareth with the tattoos and the bald head.
That's me.
From
Okay.
Over the Bar.
Overthebarblog.com.
What
Yeah,
was the
we've
question
got
again?
quite
Didn't
a few
answer.
people. Okay, my computer's just gone crazy.
We need to answer that one first, Matt.
What?
We need to answer
Yeah,
that
answer
one.
that question.
Yeah.
The one about the question.
Yeah, exactly.
Which one was that? Oh yeah, Kentucky Gareth, please. Let's go with that.
Yes. Right, Mike is going to answer the question to Nathan over there.
Matt's going to stop you.
So what do we remember about East Kentucky apart from G?
What's your favourite
We
bit?
don't need.
Thank you, Lewis.
I can remember going the wrong way a bit, and I can remember it being really steep and hilly and valleys, and I can remember the drivers being very, very patient, and I can remember stopping in at a milkshake bar that was closing and then giving me bananas, and then I went into the boonies that I'm calling them, where Boonville was, and Chabbies and other places like that, and it was just up and down like this, and you would, it's like I live in South Wales, and it's what I think of as like the valleys. And then I came out above the cloud line, and the whole valleys were covered in mist. And it was really beautiful when you're up on the top of the mountains. And it's like you descend into the mist, and it's like this other world. And that's what.
Oh, that's what it does.
It's really unlike anywhere else I've ever been. It's just crazy. The scenery in itself is pretty amazing. It's these really steep wooded, everything's very wooded valleys. But it's the people more than anything else. A, the drivers give you a lot more room than anywhere else I've ever been. But B, it really is quite a poor area. And all the towns are noticeably shabby and run down, and I've never seen anybody pile trash in their gardens like those people did. It was just nuts. You could see, I think I rode past one guy's house, he had 4 toilets in his garden, just dumped on the grass. Just nuts.
But it's next mining place, isn't it? So they've got like, you know, the third and second and third generation jobs and things. So it is quite a poor area.
Different way of living. We've got a question from Phil over here.
Where does your mind go? What, I mean, honestly, I've done endurance races and 24-hour races, and I can't remember any of it. So I'm amazed at your actual recollection of the whole journey, the whole event, and everything that's happened to you. What do you think about it? Where do you put your mind for something like that?
It's kind of interesting because I think midway through the basin in Wyoming, the film guys caught up to me and they asked me exactly that question. And I think I gave them the worst answer ever. Can't really remember what I said, but it was basically, I think about everything and I think about nothing as well. And I think that's kind of true. That your mind goes off on these tangents. You're very focused on the race, but actually when you're riding the distances, your mind kind of wanders. And I'm not really sure where it wanders to, but you do seem to think about it a lot, if that makes any kind of sense at all, which it probably doesn't.
A lot of nothing.
I think, I think like in normal day life, the people who know me know that I get distracted very easily by pretty much everything and anything. So, you know, there's loads of cold cups of tea and put down pencils and 5mm Allen keys all over my face. And I can't, you know, and I find that's difficult when I'm trying to do stuff. I always go off and think of something else. When I'm on the bike, my mind is kind of racing along and doing all these new things.
Do you think about your engineering solutions while you're on?
I don't care what it does because it can do that, and that's one of the things I love. I mean, all the time I'm still riding the bike, and the actual, if you want to call it pain or discomfort or whatever it is, that when you're pushing it on a bike and you're doing long distances and you're tired, that fades into the background and your mind races along and does whatever it wants to do. And I find it's harder on the flats because you just, and it's harder after a long time. In the World Cycle Race, I kind of got to the end of all the things I was going to think about. I had to realise that my hands hurt and my bum hurts and like everything, you know, and I kind of questioned why I was doing it and things like that. So I think for me, because I'm so easily distracted and because my kind of mind wanders a lot, perfect places for on a bike when we're just out.
Yes. Can I just interject slightly? Mike actually holds the world record for cycling around the world. You don't? But he broke the world record by how many?
The then
2 weeks.
It's all a grey area.
He broke the world record cycling around the world for 2 weeks. So come on.
We're going to carry on with the Q&A, but a point of order, we have a licence till 10. If you fancy another beer, which I'm sure you do, get one for me. 10 o'clock, so go to the line out and grab a beer quietly, and we'll carry on with the Q&A if that's alright. I'm sure there's a few more questions. Another question from the floor, but do get another drink. And
The gentleman with the glasses and beer.
What are you guys doing next? You got any plans, any trips? Sort of.
Are you doing the world race?
a whole section of the talk we didn't talk about is actually what is coming up next for Mike. He's organising the Transcontinental.
Yeah.
Rubbish publicity. We introduced it, but it's happening next weekend. Whether there needs to be,
follow. Transcontinental is happeing again. Starts next Saturday. It goes from Westminster Bridge in London to Istanbul to the Bosphorus Strait. Literally the thinnest part of the Bosphorus Strait between Europe and Asia. And there's some people in this room who are doing it.
Hands up there. Who's doing the
Josh!
Transcontinental Josh. The guys who are doing it before we leave, come find me. And so I'll be going on that driving route in a sort of controlled media car to set up the checkpoints. So we go to Paris to do the first one, that comes during about 36 hours, and then we go on to Italy and Stelvio Pass. So that's a brilliant road trip when they get to
And how can we follow that?
And you can follow it on transcontinentalrace.com, which will have the tracker on it very soon. The tracker, you can find the track leaders and on our Facebook page and other social media. There's 101 people doing it, and they all have one of these.
Because I got AIDS.
So yeah, this is not
in my head.
I think there are a few dropouts. We'll have a crowd of about 90. So 30 did it last year, and it was good. And we got a real good reference rate. We've got lots of people excited to do it this year. We keep numbers low to make it manageable. But yeah, we're sort of going to try and grow it steadily so that it doesn't all kind of collapse on itself from too commercial or too, we're kind of running it at Audax money because it's the kind of anti-sporty, anti-brand, anti-mass participation thing. Hopefully there's some good stories come out of that, and that's what I like.
Yeah, awesome. And also, if you guys want to have a look at the video we're doing tonight, because it's been live streaming all over the world. If you go to overthebar.com, sorry, overthebarblog.com, you'll be able to see the video, and it's going to be up on YouTube tomorrow. Is that correct, Darren?
Straight after this.
Straight after this?
Yep.
You can go home and watch it all again.
Yeah, I might watch it all again. So,
And we might try and do like a little, like if there's any other questions that you have and you want to put them in the comments on there, we might try and answer them like either via a quick kind of video somewhere. Or,
yes, okay.
You don't have to, if you don't have anything you didn't ask tonight or you just want to go to the bar and like, we can answer them a little bit later or something.
Well, can we please be upstanding for Mike and Ed? Thank you very much for coming.